Hello, everybody. This is Jason with another episode of the Inked Up Runner. Today, I am going to be talking with Ginny Kelly, who's an ultra runner, and she is also the owner and director of Bad Beard Events. You might know Bad Beard Events from such popular races as Stump Jump 50K 10 miler, the River Gorge, and Rabid Raccoon. Jenny and I talk about all the races that Bad Beard puts on and kind of what she has going on, her journey in the running, and what she has on tap. You guys enjoy. All right. Thanks, Jenny, for joining me today. I know we've been trying to do this for a little bit, and our
We made
schedules,
it.
crossed up, right?
Yes, yes. It's a good time. I feel, it is once kind of race season is headed to the end for Bad Beard. So yeah, so now I feel kind of I've got some free time, which is is great.
Yeah, and I mean, let's face it, putting on a race in itself is such a huge piece. I was interviewing the Gageses, Brian and Shelly, and we were talking about no business and Yamakra, and it was funny because I said, are you guys thinking about something else? And they started laughing. They're like, well, two's enough,
Yes.
because
Yes, when people see it, I mean, it's one of those proud things because they don't, a lot of runners come through and hopefully they've had the best race experience, they've ever had at one of our races. But man, the work that goes in, behind it, I think the day after stump jump, well, at least I know that night I got home and could barely even move. And then Sunday, I just begged my husband to please don't have anything on the calendar so I can just stare at the ceiling.
you're like, I'm busy for the next 4 or 5 weeks.
You just kind of see, you feel a little bit out of it. You're proud of the runners, you're proud of your volunteers, you're proud of the work that you've done. And but man, it takes you about a full week to come to, get back to life after everything is over because your body just kind of breaks down for a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've never race directed before in my life, but I've had so many different race directors on. I've had Jason Green on, I've had the Gages is
Mhm.
on, just listening to them talk about the amount of work that's in it, it totally makes a ton of sense. So I guess before we jump into Bad Beard, you've done some running yourself. So give us kind of, how did you get into the running scene? What was it that got you going into that, and we can transition right into Bad Beard.
Sure. I moved to Chattanooga about 13 years ago and grew up in Oxford, Mississippi. And, we didn't have, I mean, we had a couple of hills. There was nothing like being, and, it wasn't anything like being in the mountains. And I ran cross country through and track throughout school and was part of a championship team and all of that, and really loved to run competitively, but had never really been a trail runner. Had always been more of a road runner because our cross country stuff that was on, that was out at the golf course and things like that. We didn't really have any trails. And so back in the early 90s, and when I moved to Chattanooga, there was it started out, I think it was running in the boonies, and Randy Horton with Wild Trails, and some Jim Farmer and Dreama Campbell and some other folks. Tom Sell had created this group, and that turned into kind of a meetup group too. And there were about, I think, at the time when I joined, there were probably 500 runners, trail runners, something like that, which was crazy to me. And I always felt intimidated to really get into that scene because I'd not been there before. But there was a girl named Wendy Jensen, and then it was her 40th birthday, and it was called. It's the name of the run on Meetup was "It's All Downhill from Here," and so we got on the incline, took the incline railway up to the top of Lookout and ran down. And that was my first experience into trail running in Chattanooga. And it was just wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And that took me from running, I think the longest distance I'd run at the time was a half marathon on the road. And that took me probably maybe a month. And then I decided I would run 18 miles with a friend, Fred Doss, and another person out in Sale Creek. What is happening? I don't. This is amazing, but oh my gosh, this hurts. And then I just fell in love with it and continued to stick with it and started running some races and was asked to be on the Rock Creek race team. And yeah, started kind of transitioning my road running into the trail running world. And we all know once you kind of get in it, it's hard to get, it's hard to ever get out of it.
Yeah, and so you actually you've actually ran you've actually ran some pretty decent races. I mean you're no slouch. I mean you ran what, you ran the Georgia Jewel, right?
Mhm. Yes, I ran the 35 miler Georgia Jewel. I've done some 50Ks, and then gosh, I'm trying to even remember. I've had some injuries, so that's not been fun and kind of kept me on the sidelines for the last couple years. But the last long distance race that I ran was the Lookout Mountain 50 miler. So some road stuff since then, but had my ankle repaired, and now I've got a broken foot.
It's not
I'm
one
getting
thing, it's another, right?
That's what happens when you get older, I guess. I'm just gonna use that excuse. I'm a very every time I would roll my ankle, I took great care of it. And that is what happened is that every time I would roll my ankle, I hated to miss a day of running and would get out and keep going and going and just never let it fully heal. So that ended up in an ankle repair. And as soon as I was cleared to start running again, I started running pretty hard. And I think that kind of led to a break in my second metatarsal because I'd just gotten back out there too fast. But I'm determined I'm going to do it the right way. Come moving forward.
You're going to take it easy, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I have
Maybe.
never got the opportunity to run the Lookout 50. I've heard great things about it, but it falls in a time where my schedule usually does not allow me to do it. I've heard that is such an awesome event, and I've had so many friends talk about it. And I think that brings us back to what Chattanooga has to offer. Chattanooga has probably some of the best trail systems I've ever seen. I mean, there are trails everywhere out there. Um, I,
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember the first time I got to run the Big Daddy Loop out there, I was blown away because I never knew that it was even there. And a friend gave me directions, and I went out there and I was like, holy cow. And they're like, oh, yeah, you can actually cross over the mountain and it'll take you over into into another area, into I think it's what is it, Lula Lake
Lula-
and that whole
Oh
area. I
yeah.
mean, it's just so much around that whole area. It's just amazing.
Yes, we're so fortunate to have to have mountains to choose from and so many different trails within 20 miles. I mean, you can get out, like you can get to Saudi, you can get out to Sale Creek, you can, Raccoon, Signal, Lookout, Cloudland. We're so fortunate to be in an area that is as beautiful as it is and just gives you so many opportunities to get out and get on trails. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I got to run. I was fortunate to get to run the Chattanooga 50 the year that it started at Cloudland Canyon and ended in Chattanooga. And that was quite possibly, and I tell all my friends this, it was quite possibly the prettiest trail running I've ever got to do in my entire life, because you start at Cloudland Canyon, right? And
Yeah.
you run all the way. you run out of that, and then you get to run, past the lake, and then over the over in the lookout, and then down and
Mhm.
finishing in Chattanooga is so, I love Chattanooga. And it was just such a memorable experience, because like I had never known that Cloudland Canyon was there before I ran the Cloudland Canyon 50K.
Yes, it's gorgeous. I mean, the Cloudland Canyon half is one of my favorite halves to do because I mean, it's all you know, if you like stairs at the end,
Yeah.
which which I do. I mean, you know what you're in for, and it's just such a great experience. Yes, and that Cloudland area over into Five Points from Lookout, or Lula, and all of that. It's just such a really beautiful area, and a lot of mountain bikers spend time out in Five Points in that area, and so I love that it was incorporated into the race, and then getting over into Lula Lake, which is equally just beautiful, and being able to cross over and then hit the bluff trail at Lookout. It really just yeah, it's that's a great course.
Yeah, it was really cool. So you did some running, and so tell us a little bit about Bad Beard, and like the, kind of the history around it. I can tell you right now, you have the best race logo of any race logo ever. Like
Yeah,
this is literally
I
my
love
favorite
it.
race shirt all the
Oh,
time. And it is, and I remember talking to somebody about it. I'm like, whoever their artist is,
yeah.
it's amazing, because I believe, John Harden took over Savage Golf,
Yes.
and
Uh-huh.
I'm fairly certain that he's still using that that logo from you
Yes.
guys.
That's our so that we are so fortunate to have a guy named Jim Horton as our designer. And Jim is based out of North Carolina, and he is best buddies with former Rock Creek owner Chad Weichel, and they started Triple Crown Bouldering. And Jim came up with kind of that guy, that man for a lot of our races, and it was we actually have it trademarked because we started noticing that that logo was ending up, and we're like, oh gosh, no, that's we've had this, we've got to, so we trademarked the logo. And I talked to Jason Green a little bit about it. He's like, do it, get it done. And so I feel like that's probably one of the smartest things that I've done since I've been part of Bad Beard. But yeah, it was formerly the Rock Creek Race Series. um, it it Chad Weichel and Dawson and Jonathan Scott, when they were all part of Rock Creek, and part of the Trail Series, put it in a separate LLC, the Rock Creek Race Series in a separate LLC, and kind of had it separate from the retail store. And Chad later decided to take on full ownership of it, and Jonathan Scott was still an owner, but he was leaving, kind of moving out of Rock Creek because it changed hands a little bit. And I approached Jonathan about buying his piece of it, and so Chad and I became owners. And when we became owners, we decided to change the name simply because Camping World at that time had bought Rock Creek, and we didn't know what was going to happen there. And so we just thought, well, you know what, we're going to have, in case anything ever happens and they don't, want to get rid of the name, or they want the name, the race series, or want their own thing. We just, we came up with the name. Jim Horton and Chad and I came up with the name of Bad Beard Events. And mainly because of the guy. And then they also thought it would be funny to have a female partner in an event company called Bad Beard Events. so, so so that's how it got started. But um it was really the kind of main person that got the trail, kind of the trail world opened up and the racing opened up, was Matt Sims. And he worked at Rock Creek for many years and was a manager there, and then later took over as Patagonia rep. But he was the one that got the Stump Jump started and River Gorge Race, and he and another friend, Chad Womack, got Upchuck started. So and then Randy Horton from Wild Trails and Chris, they were a big part of all of this too. And I guess it was probably maybe this, I think that was my sixth or seventh stump jump. It might have been my seventh stump jump that I just directed. But yeah, but later, someone came to Chad and Jonathan Scott came to me and said, "Hey, do you know anybody that would be interested in directing races? We're looking for race directors." And I named a couple of people. And then Chad said, "Well, I was thinking maybe you might want to help me do it." And then here I am, however many 7 years later.
Little did you know, right?
Right. And I didn't know anything. I'd been my degree is in management. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll, like a spreadsheet and I think I could figure this out. But logistically it seemed pretty chaotic and I didn't know, how you maneuver things with times and just all of that. And so I knew there was going to be a learning curve there, but working with Chad was just really, really wonderful because he already kind of, he knew what was going on and he was a great teacher. And I am fortunate to have had a couple years with him as an owner to learn a lot from him. So, but now I'm kind of like feel like an old pro at this point.
You're like, I can do it all. I
I
have it
can do
now,
it.
right?
Now I got it.
So when you think about the courses, so for those, the history of stump jump, was it Matt who kind of came up with that course?
It was Matt. There was an old course that did not utilize Edwards Point that just really looped around the school. And we did that last year was the 20th anniversary. So we went back to the old course and just did a loop around the school, went out to over into Prentice Cooper and then came back. And then what we would say the 10, 11 milers just went down to Suck Creek Road, went around the school down to Suck Creek Road and came back. And so the course that's there now, it was Brian Costello, who was a former Rock Creek employee and race director. And that course is something that he helped create, the newer course that goes out to Edwards Point. So
I've always found it fascinating how courses are created because they're so, like, the stump jump course is so intricate, right?
mhm.
Like figuring out your way through like those big boulders, and like knowing, like, it's just to me it's kind of remarkable how people are able to come up and design these courses like they do. And like, stump jump is literally considered probably, I mean, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say it probably the most popular 50K probably in the state. I can't think of any other 50K that's probably, like I said, when I talk to people about their first 50K, everybody says stump jump. It's always stump jump is the course that they always pitch out there. And so, when you think about a course of that, popularity and the toughness and whatnot, I mean, to me, you know, having to, I guess, logistically change stuff up from time to time and still keep it at its core what it is, I think is really cool.
Yeah, stump jump definitely is one of those that I feel like you have to do it if you, especially if you're in Tennessee, if you're in the region that it's a race that you just have to do it. It's gained popularity throughout the years. I mean, I feel like it's one of those that has stayed pretty popular since its inception, and so um, I love it. I absolutely love it. Like I've said, I'm tired for about a week after, but it logistically trying to plan all of it and knowing that you have to have an ATV to get here and to drop aid station things off. And, it is, there are a lot of details that go into it and it's so worth it.
And I think what's important too is the fact that when you come out there, even though it's well known and it has a lot, lots of runners in it and stuff, it still feels very small at its core from
Mm.
like a community standpoint. Like everybody's out there talking to each other. It's just like one big family. And I think that's what makes things special about that race because like, being out there, last week I was a wuss and ran the 10 miler, and I didn't run the 50K version of it, but it was amazing standing around and watching all those people interact with each other. And it's just one big family out there.
That's what we hope for. I feel like Chattanooga is just such a welcoming town to runners, any outdoor events. I mean, we love outdoor events here. We had just had the Ironman the weekend, full Ironman the weekend before, and feel like you pull from so many different groups, whether it's road runners or trail runners. You've got a lot of people who want to come in and help just because they really love to see things going on, things like stump jump in their community. Tennessee River Gorge Trust has some property over there by Edwards Point, and so Elliot Burrs with the trust, was great to help out. Sorry, that's my Lucy.
You're fine.
Was great to help out. But you've got some of the same people that have run aid stations for the past 10, 15 years. Sheridan Ames has been our Mushroom Rock aid station captain off and on for since I've been part of it, and I knew before then. And Rock Creek always has Indian Rock House. It's just Fast Break has Snoopers. We're just really lucky because it really does. Chattanooga is such a great running community, and everyone comes out to support no matter what race it is. I mean, we got Wild Trails has their stage race coming up uh, in not this coming weekend, or not this weekend, maybe the 20th or 21st, something like that. And that is, we'll be out there working with them at an aid station. But yeah, we're all in it together.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, it's funny you say that if you're in Tennessee, you have to run stump jump, because I always tell people there are two races that you have to run if you're in Tennessee. And stump jump is one of them. And the second one is of course strolling gym, because you can't not run strolling gym and get, because most people, let's face it, aren't going to run the Barkley, the big Barkley, right?
No way. I don't even know about the little Barkley to say.
Right.
I
And
mean, I like
then
the idea. I like the thought of it, but I don't.
the backyard race is just as hard to get into now because it's worldwide, and then, I mean, it seems like he's taking BFCs to a whole nother level every year. And so you really, at the end of the day, if you really want to run a good Laz race, it comes down to strolling gym, right?
Right.
Plus it brings out some of the best of the running community in the entire Mid-South. I mean, you have people like Dink Taylor there, and who's it's literally like the who's who of ultra running comes out to run 40 miles in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, try not to get chased by dogs and to get smack
Yeah.
talked by Laz on the road where he's, you're climbing a hill and it's saying, my mom would run this hill, and you're like,
Thanks, man. Wait, just knock you down just a notch, not just a
right,
little.
right, and on top of it, the aid at the strolling gym is like jugs sitting on the side of the road from, water from Kroger. So it's like,
That's
you don't get, those are experiences, right? Like stump jump, you have that experience of the course and I think at the end of the day, when you think about what stump jump and strolling gym, they have a history, right? And it's history around what we do, which is ultra running. And I think it both, I think that's what makes, stump jump so special. But there are other races besides stump jump. I could talk about stump jump for like the entire time. So, let's talk a little bit about some of your other races. If you want to, let's see. Of course, the shirt that I'm wearing is
Yes,
River
yeah.
Gorge.
That River Gorge is such a great race too. It used to be a 6.5 mile option and then the 10 mile option. And when I took over, it was just the 10 mile option. And then Chad and I decided that there should be a longer option. I'll say maybe Chad just decided that. I was like, are you sure? but he decided we should utilize the pop point loop because there are lots of runners that don't really get out there and run that loop because they're so used to running the Mullins loop. And we added the pop point loop in for a 20 miler, which is great, but it's hard. I mean, it is a hard race. It's a beautiful trail. But again, doing that's a tough one. So we're talking about this year maybe changing it around and bringing the 6.5 miler back because so much has happened within, in the past few years with COVID, that you had a lot of people getting outside who normally wouldn't, because that was pretty much the only place, that they had to go. And so lots of people visiting parks, lots of people getting out on the trails, and lots of new runners out there. So we really needed to take a step back and kind of remind ourselves kind of why we got started, and some of the barriers to entry, and running with groups, and just really kind of taking baby steps, to get into trail running like most of us did. There's kind of there is a little bit of a learning curve when getting out there. It's like, what shoes do I wear? Do I carry water if I go, things like that. And so we definitely want to be open to getting new trail runners out there again. And that 6.5 mile distance is a really great one, to show off kind of the Mullins Loop up there in Prentice Cooper. And then also, it's not as crazy intimidating as maybe running 10 miles on your first big trail run. So we're going to bring back I think we're going to bring back the 6.5 miler for the River Gorge this year, or in 2023.
There would be three distances, or are you thinking just the two?
I think we'll do just the two. We've had, I don't know what people will think, because we do have a lot of people, a lot of repeat runners that like the 21 miler course. And I don't know, maybe I've got to work through it. I'm going to work through it and open that race up soon. So it could be that there's the 6.5, the 10, and the 21, or it could be the 6.5 and the 10. We'll see.
Eh, but I think you hit on something super important, because when you think about it, like I ran the 10-mile version of Stump Jump last week, and I really enjoyed that experience, because it was, for one, it wasn't as stressful. And I was thinking to myself, and I was telling a friend of mine, this would not be, this would be really great for somebody who has never really run a big trail race or done a
Mhm.
trail race before, because that 10-mile version of Stump Jump really wasn't entirely, I mean, it wasn't really difficult. I mean, there was a little bit of some spots, but nothing like the 50K version of Stump Jump
Right.
that just like literally punches you in the face,
Yeah.
you know uh, you know what I mean? And
You're not
so,
going Yeah, you're not going straight down and climbing straight back up a lot. If at all. You've got some
right,
roll,
right. And so,
which
like,
nice.
I feel like that was extremely, really, really good, and it was a great experience. And I think you hit on something big. A 6.5 mile trail run might be great for somebody who's thinking, I don't know, let me test this out and see what I think
Mhm.
about it, because I normally just do half marathons and marathons, right? So I think that's smart thinking.
Yeah, I think it's just a great way. I mean, I remember moving to Chattanooga and feeling really, I mean, it took me before I'd actually go join any of the trail running groups. It took a lot courage just to or it took a lot just to build up the courage to actually get out there and go do it, because I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't, shoes. I didn't know if I was wearing the right shoes. I didn't know if I needed to bring a water bottle. I didn't know, those things. And so I think with offering that type of distance, it really gives just kind of a sneak peek into what trail running is. And then you have the confidence to get out and spend some more time and learn a little bit more, and, just build up distance and things like that. So, And it's great for all ages too. That distance is a really, even though we do, I'll say I'm always impressed. Emily Ansick's son, Miles Ansick, he's been running the 10 miler, I think, since he was 6. I'm not,
Agreed.
so, I think, and it's always just impressed me so much. He's just such a great runner. And for years, it's like, oh, wow, how's he out there doing that? So,
It's crazy when you think about it, because I remember watching this documentary on Killian, and Killian was like climbing mountains when he was like 4 years old or some crazy stuff like that. So I mean, it's crazy how resilient and how strong kids are. It's like a lot of times we don't really take for granted that they're pretty tough little people, and can do hard
oh,
things.
they're resilient. Fall down, hop back up, maybe break an arm, no big whoop. I'll be fine.
Just keep on going, right? And then what's great, what's great is I really love River Gorge, and what's funny was I really felt like I ran stump jump so much faster than I did River Gorge when I did it. And then I went back and looked at my River Gorge time, and I was only 5 minutes slower on River Gorge than I was at stump jump. And I was like, I really wasn't as bad as I thought I was at River Gorge. But I tell you what's funny is, out of all these races that I ran, Rabid Raccoon probably kicked my butt the most. And I think it
Oh,
and I think it was because I couldn't see most of the time because my glasses kept fogging up. But there was some hellacious climbs I felt like in Rabid Raccoon.
oh yeah. That whole, everything, that's such a big mountain biking community. And Sorba takes care of those TVA trails. And when they came up again, that had been part of the Rock Creek race series. And so I'm fortunate that a lot of the majority of the races that I now have were races that are courses that were created by Rock Creek and the folks that worked at Rock Creek. But I remember getting out there for the first time to go mark the course. And I was like, whoa, this is tough. I mean, you get out there on a bike and it doesn't feel as bad. But then and we would get out there, and yes, we'd run the trails, but we would not do that course. And when you get out there and you actually run the course, whoa, I would be in the best shape if I ran this at least once a week. I could run any race if I
Uh-huh.
just ran this course once a week, because the elevation in that too, and just the climb. I mean, the climbing's hard, the terrain is intense. Usually the weather that time of year in January, I don't know if there has been a rabid raccoon that I've directed that has been sunny. I'm pretty sure it's always been cold and wet, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
sleeting. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like, and I'm just proud that people still want to run it, even though they know what they're getting into.
So the year that I ran it, it was pouring down rain,
Mhm.
and it was probably in the low 40s. It
Oh yeah.
was it was so cold. And anytime it rains, it was funny because my glasses fog up, and I've tried everything to not have them fog up. And I remember my sister used to be in the eye care business. She owned a bunch of eye care centers in London, and so I remember asking her, "What can I do to fix this?" And she finally, after she tried told me all these things to do, and I couldn't get it to work. And she said it's just your eyes. Your eyes just breathe too much. It's you. It's nothing else. And I'm like, well, damn. I mean,
That's it. That's all I got.
I mean, what's that mean exactly? I didn't know your eyes could breathe, or whatever, she was saying. But I remember running that, and my glasses immediately fogged up trying to go down,
Mhm.
those switchbacks. And I remember like trying not to fall. And finally, I just gave up, and I let like probably 30 people pass me because I could hear them making noises behind me. And then they finally leveled out. And then I remember having that climbing out is what will just absolutely just crush your
Mhm.
soul.
Mhm.
And then once you climb out, it's not bad, right? Because the
Yeah,
rest of it's just those little rolling little hills, until you finish,
sure.
and then that's real nice. But then that climb out, you're like, oh my gosh, this is never going to end.
Well, that's
I remember there was a guy behind me, and he said there was somebody behind him who had never ran it before, and they said, "How big is this?" And he goes, "Well, right when you think it's done, it's really not."
no.
He goes, "It just keeps going."
Yeah, you just basically it depends on what direction. So this year I keep saying this year, I forget that it's not 2023 yet. 2023 will be clockwise. So you won't have as bad of a climb this time coming back. But then the counterclockwise is always. I've had some people go, God, I keep getting here for counterclockwise. I need clockwise. That's right.
I need to do it clockwise, is what
You
I
need to do
need to do.
clockwise.
That's
Yeah.
what is what I
Yeah.
need to do. So
It's bad. Clockwise is also hard. It's just that you don't have the crazy climb. I mean, you've got a little bit of a climb on the way out, but it's not as bad as the other direction. So,
the other direction's right. And then and then shifting, and it's funny because shifting gears on your races, um I had heard about this race, but I really didn't hear about this race a lot until I got to know Corey Waltering some.
mhm.
And that was the Stillhouse 100K.
Yes,
And he's like, that is one of the hardest damn races.
yes, that race is a double up chuck. So Matt Sims, again, who was kind of the founder of the trail world in Chattanooga and a lot of the trail races. Upchuck is really it's got a cult following for sure. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think they cap it at about 70 people, and they bus over. You meet in Saudi, and you get bussed over in Sail Creek, and then they drop you off, and it's like, okay, now run back. And so Brian Costello, who had worked for Rock Creek, and some other guys, Chris Lee Brecky, and some of the other ones said, wouldn't it be fun if we created this event called the Steelhouse 100K? And it was a double up chuck. I don't know who was excited about that, but there were people that got excited about that because it starts at midnight, and you run from Saudi over into Sale, and then you go from Sale back to Saudi. And people, were like, yeah, sign me up to do that. And I just thought, they are crazy. I can't believe that we have people signing up for this. And my friends, Robin Crump and Michael Emerling, they love that race. They absolutely love it. I said, y'all, I mean, we're up for 19 hours, but that's okay. That's okay because people come out to do it. And it's just such an amazing experience, always watching the runners get out there and listening to their stories because they're starting at midnight running a so much again. Wow, this
Uh,
is intense.
well, what's funny is I've never have done upchuck, but I have a friend who did it, and he got done running it, and he was like, that was one of the most brutal
Hmm.
races I've done, just because of the how technical it is and how tough it is. And I asked him one time, I'm like, would you ever want to do Stillhouse? And he's like, I can't even fathom doing two of those back to back. And I mean, just once is enough for most people,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
you must really like to test yourself out to do it twice. So, but
That's
I mean,
yeah, there's no limits. I always kind of laugh because you think right when you think there's a limit to what people will do or to what you will do. It just takes one person to go, come on, you should do it. You're like, okay, I think I'll try it. That's how the trail running world works. I've learned that the more trail runners you hang out with, the more you talk yourself into doing things that you would never do if you were.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. There was a guy interviewed, Joe Jude, and he just got done running, I think 200 miles in like 5 days at Frozen Head, which I can't even wrap my head around. But it's just like, I guess, like you said, people are constantly looking for a challenge. and
Mhm.
that's a challenge, and it's obviously a big one because like I follow along typically on Facebook or Instagram and see the posts from the race, and everybody talks about how tough it is. And usually there's some crazy weather always around it, or something is
Mhm.
going on, or I think, it just always
Yeah.
seems like it's just a tough race.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I like my yes, like I was saying, Robin Crump, who is a friend of mine, is just that's what she loves. That distance, she loves longer distances. She loves 100K. She loves 100 milers. She doesn't really like anything less than 100K. So she gets so excited just, to get out there. Anybody sign up for this, sign up. And I'll go, do you think they'll really sign up for 100K if they've never? She'll go, sure. They'll, like, okay, all right. And sure enough, I'm, I'm the one who's like, I don't want to, I can't believe this many people will come run those. So,
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, like I said, I mean, it's above my wheelhouse. I can tell you that much. I have no desire to attempt that. At least not until I'm much older, maybe, or crazy, or one of the two. But I guess, to wrap up the Rock Creek races, there's in this one, is it Oli Kai or
Molokai. Yes.
Olakai?
So, Molokai that's a newer one for us. I've always liked a looped course. I had such a good time. I ran the Ozone. Will Jorgensen has the Ozone um, race in Rockwood, Tennessee, and I loved that experience. Had such a great time, and we've got a spot in Chattanooga called Reflection Riding, and that area lends itself to a looped course just easily. So we decided this year that we'd give it a go for a 3 hour and a 6 hour, and we capped it at 50 because we didn't really know what we were doing. We've used ultra sign up software in the past to, for racing, and bib tap for, timing. But I wasn't sure. I'd not used them for looping any kind of looped course, and wasn't exactly sure what that was going to look like. So we capped it at 50. And then naturally, the week of the race, we probably had 100 people send us emails saying, "Can we get in?" I was like, let me just figure out the timing first, and the next year will be okay. And gosh, we had such a great time. So yeah, we had 50 people out there for the 3 hour and the 6 hour, and it was just wonderful. 2 mile looped course. And yeah, so we're gonna continue that one on for sure. That was the beginning of September, and we think we'll probably leave it in September, maybe move it a little later in the fall. There's not a lot happening around here in December, so we thought we might move it to December, but we've got some time to think about it. So yeah, but then Stump Jump, of course, again will always be kind of that first weekend in October. We're always waiting to hear about hunting dates. So we've got to go around TWRA. So TWRA's hunting dates in Prentice Cooper, and they make those hunting dates every 2 years. And so when they decide on a hunting date, it's good for 2 years. And so that works out well for the second year for us every year at Stump Jump, because we always know when, okay, good, we can have Stump Jump this date. But when they're determining when the 2 years passes up, we usually have to wait until mid-June for TWRA to decide what the fall hunting dates look like. So, but yeah, that's our series kind of in a nutshell right now. We're really, really lucky to have had the support of Rock Creek for so long, because it was part of the Rock Creek Race Series was just such an amazing event, and now it's Bad Beard, but yet at the same time we still definitely have the support of Rock Creek, and a lot of the same sponsors that we've had in the past. This year it's La Sportiva and Arcteryx, Chattanooga Brewing Company, Fast Break. Yeah, so I love doing it, and I'm really, really looking to a fun 2023.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's great when you can come up with something and just immediately find success in it. Like with that race, it's like Jason Green, he moved the Seven Trails race down to Savannah, Georgia,
Mhm.
and it was such a big turnout. He ended up keeping it and creating a whole different race out of it because it had
Yeah,
such a huge turn, right? Everybody wanted to run it once it was like everybody heard about it, and it's a loop
yeah,
course, right?
uh-huh,
And let's face it, it's Savannah, Georgia, and what
yeah,
everybody loves Savannah, Georgia, right? So it's like
yeah.
it's just like, when you get something and it works out well, that has to feel good. So I guess, you got your races, you got a little break from that. So what else you got going on? Anything else major happening for you?
We let's see, job wise, I'm really, I'm the regional director for the land trust for Tennessee. So it's kind of crazy. When I moved to Chattanooga, I was in pharmaceuticals and had been in that industry for about 15 years. And it was really took me moving here to recognize how much I loved outdoor space, and being in the outdoor kind of world became just such a big part of my life. And which led me to work for some outdoor brands. And before COVID, I'd worked for Solomon. I was their community engagement manager. And so I would do things, around town here, and then Asheville, and then also Atlanta. But after COVID hit, it was just kind of that, no events were happening. So Solomon didn't, they can't really keep people couldn't keep jobs because there was nothing going on. So that during that time, I had a lot more time to think about what I wanted to do. And I knew that I wanted to stay in the outdoor space. And Chad Weichel, he had left Rock Creek, and started working for the Land Trust for Tennessee. He happened to be moving to North Carolina, and I knew his position was open, and reached out to them. And then it's so funny because here Chad and I had been partners in Bad Beard events, and now we've just been such good friends for so long. And I knew what Chad was doing with the land trust, and when I reached out and to Liz McLaurin, who's our president of the land trust, we had coffee and talked about the job. And yeah, and so now it's been a little over a year. Protect over about 150,000 acres in the state of Tennessee, about 56,000 in the southeast. So I spend my time in conservation when I when I'm not race directing. So it really does go hand in hand.
And I think I think, we need that, right? Because otherwise, you're going to lose some of these
Yeah.
natural areas that we enjoy
Mhm.
so much. Because I live in I live in Murfreesboro, and Murfreesboro is just, it's ridiculous. I mean, they're literally taking every green spot and putting something there now. And I mean, and if we don't have people out, helping protect our land and helping to preserve that so that we can go out and run trails, we're
Yeah.
going to lose it.
Yes, and that's exactly right. I mean, the great thing about what I do is that we work with landowners, we work with state officials, we work local officials. I mean, you name it, and it really just takes someone understanding what it means to protect land and what a conservation easement is. That the conservation easement can be a little bit confusing to people. It's like, oh, are you taking my property away? Now you own my property. It's kind of, no, you get to keep your property forever. You're just saying that you won't ever develop your property, that it's going to stay a green space for as long, in perpetuity, as for the forever. And understanding that and what the value of, yes, just protecting our green spaces for future generations, what that means and how important that is. I'm glad more people are recognizing it. Especially, I think more people recognize it even more so now after what we just, the pandemic, after going through a pandemic and knowing that, oh gosh, we had to go into our houses for weeks. And I remember, you know, being my friends and I would talk, and I was like, there's not a car on the road. Well, no, because everybody's, there is shelter in place. And it was
Hmm.
just of wild. You could get out and go exercise, but you really couldn't, everything else was closed down. And so when you kind of realize that outdoor spaces are all you really have, you want to protect those. So
Oh, absolutely. And I think you hit on something big because ever since we came out of COVID, it seems like, it's much harder to get camping permits,
mhm.
backcountry camping permits. We were looking for doing some backpacking up in the Savage Gulf area and camping up there. And a lot of the campsites were already booked out way in advance.
Oh,
And I think very little good came out of COVID. But if you could find one thing that came out of COVID was, I think you hit it. People were forced to kind of get out and go to places that you wouldn't have probably have gone, right?
yeah.
If the movie theater's closed down or your favorite restaurant is closed down, what can you do? You can go
Yeah.
walk in a park somewhere, right?
I want to say we had to move uh, River Gorge from March to June, and it was around the COVID time period. And they just opened things back up and said, okay, we think we're going to open Prentice Cooper back up. And I remember talking to someone at Prentice Cooper, and he said, they had a clicker. They had a thousand people show up the day that they opened back up, which was and that wow. I mean, they were overwhelmed for sure, but just could not get over how many people were ready to get out. And just again, like you were saying, new people who hadn't really thought about what's in their backyard, but now want to get out and explore. And so I think it's great. I just, yeah, all the people getting out there, making sure they take care of the space too, because I know Forest Service has been a little overwhelmed with with the traffic.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can see that. I can see that 100%. Well, I think this is probably a great place to end. I mean, this has been awesome. You've been on my radar for a while now, and it's like I always say this is trying to figure out when I want to talk to folks and I thought, I was running Stump Jump and this was a great time to kind of work you into my schedule. So I really appreciate you taking time out to talk to me and tell people about Bad Beard because for those who've never heard about it, now they know. So it's
Yeah,
been
thank you
fun.
so much, Jason. This has been great. Yeah, was so happy to see you out at the race, and it's like, yay! Now we really officially know each other.
That's right. It's funny. I know so many people who doing this, and it's great to meet them in person. It was awesome. Corey and I went out and ran some of the perimeter trail together. He had never been on the perimeter trail,
Yeah.
and so we met out there and we ran the perimeter trail. And I gave him the disclaimer at the beginning. I'm like, I'm old and I'd run slow. And I'm like, I just want to lay that out there on the table before we even, get going. And he's like, oh no, it's fine. I'm out here just to have a good, just to enjoy the company and,
Yes.
enjoy the trail. But it was so nice, meeting him in person. It's so nice meeting you in person. And, it's just, it's always great to meet these, put the person in front of you instead of
Yeah.
just behind the camera. So I really appreciate it.
I know, I love it. I feel like, you see so many people on social media, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, and then you see them in person. You're like, I know that person. You're like, oh my gosh, they're in real life now. I've seen them over here, but here they are in front of me. It's great. So wonderful to meet you. Thank you
Uh,
for having.
Well, it's been great. And guys, as always, there'll be a video and audio version. And until next time, I'll see you on the trail.